Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It's a pleasure to be with you here on a Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I hope you are all safe and well wherever you are in the world, and that you have continued to pay thanks, as we all have and should need to of course, all the fantastic key workers and NHS workers in the UK and in different hospitals around the world who are helping to keep us safe during COVID-19. We've had, as always, some fantastic questions coming in from you over the past week or so, and we'll try to get through as many of them as we can. We've also got some exciting announcements to bring forward today, and we're going to start off with this one. Many of you may be familiar with the actors of Dionysus. Happy Thursday, Alexis. Welcome in, everyone. Many of you will be familiar with the actors of Dionysus and the fantastic work that they do around the country, particularly in the UK. But during COVID-19, they have started a brilliant new plan, which is that every day, pretty much, and I think we're up to 38 or 39 now, they have been doing a daily dose of ancient culture for everyone over the Twitter sphere. So they have been getting people to read their favourite poems or excerpts from plays. Some of you may have caught Stephen Fry reading his last weekend. And tomorrow, Saturday, round about midday, we will be publishing, Actors of Dionysus and I will be publishing the 39th reading, which is by me. Yes, so tomorrow at around midday, keep an eye on Twitter, both on my account and that of AO Dionysus, the Actors of Dionysus, because there will be a fresh new daily dose of culture landing on your Twitter doorstep. I will be keeping it a surprise what I'll be reading until then, till tomorrow, but I had great fun recording that and getting into my kind of dramatic sphere again, playing a role and kind of giving a speech that I've long admired from an ancient Greek play, an ancient Greek tragedy. I will say no more. Hello everyone. Hello Jonathan. Hello Ian. Hello everyone. Thank you so much indeed for joining in. So that's announcement number one. The second announcement is that, as some of you may have been seeing and we flagged on the Facebook page, that my Sicily series is being reshown on the BBC at the moment. So episode 1 came out earlier this week and is now available on BBC iPlayer, and episode 2 will be shown next Monday, the 27th, and that again will be on the BBC. So you can see all the details on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Professor Michael Scott. Hello Latifa. Hello Samantha. Good afternoon. Thank you so much everyone for joining in. Hello Linda. Linda from Australia joining us in. Thank you so much indeed for coming live from all around the world in what is now, we're 9 hours ahead in Australia, aren't we? So 11 o'clock at night, not too late in the night for you to be listening in. Thank you so much. Hello Constantine. Great to have you all with us. Sicily is going live. Actors of Dionysus tomorrow. Thank you all. Yes, indeed. It's lovely. Lorraine says it's so warm. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for taking a moment to come inside, or maybe you're listening in your gardens, kind of wherever you might be listening, wherever in the world, whether you're enjoying the sunshine or whether you've come inside for a brief respite from the heat, you are very welcome. So we are Sicily's live, and then the next announcement today is just a plethora of fantastic announcements. Now, you may remember from our last Q&A that we did that one of the great questions that came in was, what's your favourite, do you have a favourite pairing of sort of a tragedy and a comedy? And that came in from a theatre director, Jeremy, who is thinking of putting on, or is putting on in 2021, a production of the ancient plays. Now, we've been in touch with Jeremy over the course of the week, and he has very kindly told us that he hasn't yet made his final decision about which plays he is going to be putting on. So, what we are going to do is this. We are going to respond to the fact, over the Facebook page over the past week, we've been asking you to send in names of your favourite ancient tragedies and comedies, right? We now have that list of your top favourites. I have been busy pairing them into particular pairings of a tragedy and a comedy, and it's been great fun doing this, thinking about what would respond to one another in each tragedy and comedy. We are going to launch these on the Facebook page as the World Cup of ancient Greek plays, right? So there's going to be a playoff between the different pairings, and we're going to get through some quarterfinals, we're going to get through some semi-finals, and we're going to be needing you all to vote as much as possible to come out with a pairing winner. Now, Jeremy has very kindly said that he will take into serious consideration the play that emerges, and the pairing of plays that emerges as the winner from our Facebook World Cup of Ancient Greek Plays. Take that into serious consideration when he makes his choice for what he is going to be putting on stage in 2021. So there we go. We have a chance to affect actual production that we can then go and see in a world past COVID-19, I suspect, and very much hope. We have a chance to affect the direction that will take. So when the World Cup of Ancient Greek Plays goes live on the Facebook page, get voting. Hello from Salisbury, hello to Glasgow, hello to Athens, hello to you all. Thank you so much for joining in. So some great announcements. First off, tomorrow, Saturday, about midday, keep an eye on the Twitter sphere because Actors of Dionysus' Daily Dose of Culture will be coming from me and a reading of one of my favourite speeches from Ancient Greek tragedy. Then keep an eye out on the TV because the Sicily series is back out and live with the first episode on iPlayer, the next episode coming out on Monday. And the third is on the Facebook page. Keep an eye out for the World Cup of Ancient Greek Plays because it's going to be your choice which pairing becomes the winner, and that might well have an impact on what Jeremy Davies decides to put on the stage come 2021. And as Linda suggests, a group outing sounds like an absolutely fantastic idea. Right, brilliant. What a fantastic set of announcements to start with. Now, your questions, right? Let's get to some of the great questions that have been coming in. We've had one from Cadence D'Olive, who asked, what sayings stem from things people did or said in the ancient world? Brackets, I'm aware of the dangers of getting the wrong end of the stick and where that comes from. Now, I think this might have something to do with the fact that we were talking about how the Romans washed their bombs and poo sticks, etc., and you didn't want to get the wrong end of that stick. Jeremy, you're so delighted you've taken this up. Really looking forward to seeing the results. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Absolutely brilliant that you're willing to take part in this World Cup and to be potentially influenced by the result. We can't wait to find out what the World Cup of Plays has come about. And as I said, it was really, really fun pairing up the tragedy and comedy and thinking how the two might respond to one another. Just going on the initial selection of tragedies and comedies that the Facebook page followers were coming up with. So it would be fun to say a little bit more about that. I think definitely when we get through to the quarterfinals and semi-finals, quarterfinals, semi-finals and final, I'll be talking a little bit more about what were the thoughts I had about why the pairings might work, and that might potentially influence people's votes as they get through to the semi-finals and finals. Stefan, you got your book a couple of days ago. I'm so glad. Thank you. So, Ken, you're asking about your question. Yes, so I think there's lots of ancient phrases that we still use today that come from antiquity, but perhaps my favourite is this, which is, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Now, we still use that all the time, and I guess I'd always presumed, really, that we were using it because of somebody who said something in Rome, right? And perhaps a Roman emperor, or did it come from the heyday, if you like, of the pagan Roman world? It doesn't. Actually, where it comes from is from in the 4th century AD, when Christianity was being adopted slowly as the preferred religion, moving towards the end of the 4th century when it would become the official religion of the Roman world. But Christianity itself was still in a state of complete flux. And actually, Christian practices differed massively depending on where you went within the wider Mediterranean world. And this wasn't really, the first kind of attempts were made by Constantine to sort of impose some kind of order and agreed answer on the early Christian community, which didn't really work particularly well. It was sort of Nicene Creed, etc., and then kind of subsequent councils after that, after the first Council of Nicaea. But the phrase, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, comes from a Christian priest in Carthage in North Africa who was responding to one of his constituents who had travelled to Rome and taken part in Christian worship there, had come back to Carthage and had asked his bishop in a very confused manner, look, when I go to Rome, they're worshipping in a completely different way. What should I do? And the bishop's response supposedly was, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So that's where we get our phrase, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, actually coming from the early confusion in the first centuries of Christianity as it became the kind of official religion of the Roman Empire when it was still being practiced in all sorts of different ways in different places. So, Cadence, thank you so much indeed for that question. Absolutely fantastic. We've had some other great questions coming in, and if I can get through the list here, I wanted to come to, where are we? So Sarah Grange asked this, and this was last week. I didn't get around to answering this. It was my in-laws' wedding anniversary today. This was back on the 1st of April, so happy anniversary to your in-laws, Sarah. Did the ancient Romans celebrate wedding anniversaries? So Sarah, great question, really interesting. Actually, in fact, doesn't seem to be a thing. Right? Marriages, obviously, definitely a thing. Weddings were definitely a thing. Divorce was definitely a thing, and people could go on to remarry. But actual wedding anniversaries don't actually seem to be a thing that was part of the kind of Roman celebration. Isabel, hello from the London sunshine. Thank you so much indeed for joining in, Latifa. Absolutely, yep, the kind of wedding Romans. If you guys have another favourite phrase that you think springs from antiquity, do let us know. Let us know now live, or let us know on the Facebook page as well. It'd be absolutely fantastic to hear your favourites. Do send them in and we'll post them out. So Sarah, it doesn't seem to be that wedding anniversaries were a good thing, and there certainly doesn't seem to be any kind of list from the ancient Roman world of what you're supposed to give on particular wedding anniversaries. No particular gifts or anything like that. Sarah Scotty, we've had a question from you as well. In fact, there's two questions. You had a part 1 and a part 2 to your question. Ooh, clever. First off, I recently discovered that Sarah lives, near the Antonine Wall, but the locals don't seem to know much about it. What can you tell me about it? Well, so Sarah Scotty is based in Scotland. Brilliant. Good surname association with the place you live. And you live near the Antonine Wall. So we all know Hadrian's Wall. Very, very, very famous indeed. And obviously there's lots of it remaining, and you can walk along solid built bits of it still to this day. The Antonine Wall is further north, so it's a stretch of about 37 miles that runs from Clyde to Firth, and this was built by the emperor after Hadrian, and so we're talking about sort of 142 AD, something like that, and his decision to push further out the boundaries of the Roman Empire and construct a new wall. And Roman emperors did this because when new Roman emperors came to the throne, one of the things they had to do was distinguish themselves and show themselves as good as, or preferably better than, the previous emperor. How do you do that? One of the ways in which you do it is to increase the size of the Roman Empire, push back the boundaries a little bit further. And so this is what happens with the Antonine Wall. And so in 142 AD, they start constructing a wall at this new, further pushed out boundary. Now, it is never a wall, even when it was first built, that was as dramatic and as well constructed, or as monumental, if you like, as Hadrian's Wall. It was mostly a kind of turf and earth mound that ran to about 3 meters high, with a ditch on the other side, but with watchtowers, or 16 or 17 different watchtowers running along its length, probably staffed and sort of patrolled by something like 6,000 to 7,000 soldiers, something like that. So, substantial manpower, if not a substantial monumental thing. But almost immediately after that emperor then passed away, the decision was taken to retrench. And so the Roman Empire very, very quickly retracted back, particularly in England and Scotland, to Hadrian's Wall, to the previous boundary. So the Antonine Wall, having been built in 142, was probably abandoned by 165. So just over 20 years later. And because it certainly wasn't maintained for so long, wasn't constructed in such a monumental and hard-wearing fashion, there's so much less left of it now, which means it's so little known about. But the Antonine Wall was there, and is actually the furthest north that the Roman Empire went into Scotland, kind of thing. Laurie, excellent bathhouse in Bearsden, right? Kind of. I'm confused as to how that relates to. Daniel Williams, greeting from Kiev. Thank you very much indeed. Coming on, the phrase harping on about it comes from the harpies of Greek mythology. Ooh, interesting. I would have to think about that and have a check about that, like kind of thing. Did the Romans come as far west as Pembrokeshire? Asked Nicola James. A purse of Roman coins were found there. Well, so this is really interesting. So in Wales, And getting into the west coast, so Caerleon was a Roman garrison, Roman fort, absolutely. Now, what happened beyond that? We know that Romans often went and did some building for local tribes that lived beyond that. Welsh tribes were quite a problem for the Romans in Britain. They didn't subdue an awful lot of the country, nor did they see, to be perfectly honest, a great deal of point in doing so. But what they wanted, they established the fort at Caerleon, and then they would actually often go in and use, if you like, soft culture, soft power, to be able to bend the will of these Welsh tribes to their own desires. So they would go into the village of the particular tribe, and they would build them a sort of structure or building. And of course it would be a building in sort of Roman style, so that this tribe, though they were independent, though they could get on and live their lives in their own way, they were being slowly acculturated into doing things in the Roman style. And thus, as a result, the Romans could have more interaction with them. So you then see quite a lot of trade and interaction between native tribes with their sort of semi-Roman-esque built places and Roman encampments. And that's often where you then see Roman money moving around a lot. So Roman money and Roman coinage moves a lot further and is found a lot further afield than actually necessarily the Roman military presence extended to. There we go. The Romans didn't like the Druids. No, they did not. Didn't like anything that was not willing to accept the ultimate mastership of the Roman emperor. That was effectively what every religion, the test that every religion that the Romans managed to happily incorporate had to pass. That could you do that religion and simultaneously say that your ultimate authority was to the emperor? There we go. Isabel, day by day, what you choose, what you think, and what you do is who you become. Heraclitus, great, absolutely. The philosophy of the ancients. This is what I love. Love it. Absolutely brilliant. Sarah, that was your first question, asking about the Antonine Wall. Your second question, moving track to the ancient Greek world, Sarah Scotty. Brilliant kind of move. I just read authors like Theophrastus had stock idiot characters. I'd love to know what these were, and you could do with a laugh in COVID-19 era. Of course, we all could. Well, Theophrastus is one of my favourite characters from the ancient Greek world. Now, he's a 4th century, end of the 4th century character. He's a philosopher, so he becomes one of the heads of the schools of philosophy in ancient Athens. But he is also someone writing about nature. So one of the first kind of studies of plants, for instance, is also written by Theophrastus. But he is also a studier of the human condition and of human characters. And you can, if you Google and look for Theophrastus's characters, that's the text that he wrote with his stock characters. And they are people like the superstitious man, the greedy man, the flattering man. And they are short, couple of paragraphs each, caricature outlines of what the most excessive versions of the greedy man, of the superstitious man, of the flatterer man is like. And they are brilliant character portrayals. I challenge any of you to read any one of Theophrastus's characters and not then, when we're allowed to go out and about and the cafes and the restaurants and the bars are open again, not find easily in any kind of social setting at least one of those characters still flamboyantly around us. So Theophrastus's characters, absolutely brilliant, really, really worth looking. The superstitious man, for example, he can't possibly leave house unless all the omens are exactly right, and unless he's done all the kind of worshipping to the gods, and he won't possibly put his cross any kind of superstitious mark or anything like that without turning around 3 times. The point being that he'll just never ever get anything done in his day because he's spending so much time being superstitious. So the Greeks and Theophrastus was pointing and laughing at kind of how if you're too excessive in any of these areas, even though some of them might be good, obviously everyone was supposed to be thinking about the gods, everyone was supposed to be observing the will of the gods, but if you went too far in that, if you became the superstitious man in excess, you would never get anything done. Daniel Williams is asking, is James Scott a Theophrastus invention? Now, I believe a little bit of this is a little bit of rivalry, Daniel. The kind of, as you know, my brother only too well, James, is not a stock character in any way or shape or form. My brother is a complete, unique, one-off individual. Thank you, Daniel, very much for that indeed. I'm sure James will be getting his own back on you very soon indeed. Anthony, hello, how are you doing? Thanks so much indeed for joining in. So, Sarah, brilliant 2 questions, absolutely fabulous. We've had a question also that came in from Bertrand Dugas asking about Themistocles. Now, Themistocles was the mastermind of the Battle of Salamis, who prevented the Persian Empire to expand in Europe. Would you say he's actually one of the most important figures of ancient Greece? Bertrand, yes, I would. I think Themistocles is an incredibly important figure. Absolute genius, because not only is he the mastermind of Salamis, he is also supposedly the person behind and the sort of motivating in the Athenian democratic debates for the Athenians to spend the money that they had suddenly discovered in the fact that they discovered their silver mines in Attica, to spend that money on building a fleet in the first place, rather than just giving the money out and sharing it out individually amongst all the individual citizens of Athens. Themistocles is the man who says, no, let's build the fleet because we might need something to protect us. And then, of course, just a decade or so later, he is proved absolutely right and becomes the mastermind of Salamis. Now, obviously, at the end of his career, it doesn't end so well. He ends up actually having to leave Athens and run away and sits and ends his days sitting very happily in the court of Persia. So it's a bit of an about turn and a volte-face, but I think Themistocles is an absolute winner. Thank you so much for your fantastic questions. We have to take a quick break from the questions because we've got lots more announcements, fun announcements. Now, in the news, what have we been having so far? Ancient Egyptian artifacts unearthed at the Temple of Ramesses II. This comes from the Archaeology magazine. We found 10 large storerooms, niches cut into the walls of the southwest corner of the Temple of Ramesses II in Abydos. These are going to be with plaques inscribed with Ramesses II's throne name, along with copper tool models, grindstones, food offerings buried around 1279 BC. Brilliant. We've had the cursing well. We do love a good curse. 30 lead tablets recovered from the bottom of a public well at the edge of the Kerameikos necropolis in Athens have been found to record curses cast by Athenians against their rivals. Brilliant. Some of them were folded. So you wrote your curse on a piece of lead, you folded it, you pierced it with nails. Others were fashioned into the shape of livers or coffins. And a particularly scathing malediction condemns an allegedly promiscuous newlywed named Glycera. Glycera sounds like you were getting yourself into trouble. Absolutely brilliant. We should get some more of those curses out and about and read them out. And remember, if you want to do your own cursing at home, the key word is I bind. That's the magic word. Get some lead, inscribe your curse onto it. I bind so-and-so to suffer such and such a fate. Wrap it up, hammer it in nails. You can also do a voodoo doll thing, and they did that as well. Most crucially, to give your curse the power that it requires to be able to effect your will over somebody else, you need to bury it in the ground, preferably in a graveyard, and preferably near a fresh corpse. That gives it the ultimate power. There you are. You're let into the secrets of ancient curses. So in terms of announcements, we've talked about the World Cup of Ancient Greek Play, so keep an eye out for that on the Facebook page and get voting. We wanted also to flag some of the summer schools that are coming up this summer, which are going to be online, so you can actually learn. We had a question from Miranali Pandi asking about how do we go about learning ancient Greek during the time of COVID-19. Well, there's going to be a UCL summer school in Homer running from the 3rd to the 7th of August 2020, and that is going to be online, 5 days of intensive teaching of Homeric language and literature. There's going to be a UCL summer school also in ancient philosophy between the 13th of July and the 17th of July. So get your applications in for that as well. And if you're just a beginner to ancient Greek, can I suggest that you turn to the resources that are being put online by the Lytham St Anne's Classical Association on the one hand. So I'm president of the Lytham St Anne's Classical Association, and they've been doing a fantastic job of putting up a whole series of learning ancient Greek resources, which you can have a look at through Instagram. So instagram.com/learning ancient Greek, or have a look at the Lytham St Anne's Classical Association website. You could also, of course, turn to Classics for All, which is the other big national charity, which I sit as a trustee of, and they've particularly been putting forward a series of lessons using Guerrilla Greek. Now, this is a new fantastic way to learn ancient Greek, and if you're looking for something to fill up those homeschool timetables with, now is the perfect chance to get your kids addicted to some ancient Greek, and Guerrilla Greek is a brilliant way of doing that. So a couple of announcements there. More widely, if you're looking at homeschooling, don't forget the fabulous resources that are available through the Warwick Classics Network website, which we run at Warwick in conjunction with Classics for All. And of course, Runshaw College and Francesca Grilli has been putting up a whole set, 49 or so now, videos thinking about every piece of art on the OCR Greek Art A-level syllabus. And there's also videos coming out of the Cambridge Cast Gallery as well, and we'll be flagging those on the Facebook page. So lots of things for you to be looking at. There's also a series of 7 videos now created by the British Museum relating to their exhibition of Defining Beauty, available on the Warwick Classics Network. There's even a clip from a programme presented by somebody called Michael Scott from Who Were the Greeks, thinking about ancient Greece in Technicolor and the discovery of ancient traces of colour still on the Parthenon marbles. The Latin programme, if you want to learn some Latin, the Latin programme put together a selection of Latin language games and tasks, and a selection of Roman recipes also for Key Stage 2 pupils, and there's lots more to come. We've put the link on the Facebook page. And Hannah Walsh of Classics for All, who's working with Classics for All, has set up a brilliant list of all the different resources that you can find online for Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 pupils as well, specifically. So you can be looking at that through our Facebook page as well. So lots of great things going on, lots of things to be able to get involved with. And we have time. Yes, we have a couple of minutes to do 1 or 2 more questions. Jonathan, I'm so glad you're using the Warwick Classics Network videos and that they've been useful. Thank you so much. Great, really great news. Tim, Professor, have you any new documentaries in the pipeline? No, we're not filming at the moment at all. Sicily is being reshown, but fingers crossed once COVID-19 finishes and we can all get back to work, then hopefully there's be more in the pipeline. Linda's been loving the virtual tours. Linda, you asked a question via Twitter, didn't you? And I love this one. This was you've been binge watching Star Wars, as of course we all do, and you were wondering if I was Han Solo, Harrison Ford, who would be my Chewbacca, right? Who would be, from antiquity, my Chewbacca? Or if there was a Han Solo in antiquity, who would be the Chewbacca equivalent? What would be those great examples of comradeship, partnership, friendship on great adventures, great challenges, great travails that come forward from antiquity? Brilliant question. Absolutely loved it. I've got 3 options for you, and it would be lovely to hear from you guys, your thoughts as well about what are your best kind of friendship, kind of comradeship partnerships from antiquity. First one that comes to my mind is Achilles and Patroclus. So kind of from the Iliad, absolutely brilliant pairing there. From the Aeneid, Virgil's Aeneid, you get the great pairing of Nisus and Euryalus. So this is in book 9 of Virgil's Aeneid, and Nisus and Euryalus, great mates, and they decide to go and try and steal into the enemy camp, the camp of Turnus. It all ends very badly, sadly. Neither of them emerge having saved the day at all. But it's a great example of comradeship and daring do. Jonathan suggests Augustus and Agrippa. Brilliant. Okay, absolutely. What a pairing. Kind of the two of them work brilliantly together and fashion and change so much of the Roman and particularly Greek worlds as well. My other thought of a pairing, 2 of my favourite 4th century military characters from Thebes, Pelopidas and Epaminondas. Now these are 2 Theban generals. Their friendship is born in the fire of battle when one saves the other's life, and then for the rest of their careers they're sort of generals that sort of divide and conquer for Thebes across the Greek world. And they're 2 very, very different characters, so a bit Han Solo Chewbacca-esque, for 2 very, very different characters, but they are both extraordinary in what they achieve. So Pelopidas and Epaminondas, and if you go to the modern city of Thebes today, you can see a statue, at least of Epaminondas, in the streets of Thebes. Not an ancient statue, but the modern city of Thebes remembering their ancient ancestor. And just as a quick forward look to books that are coming out in the future, can I recommend, because I've just been reading an advanced copy in order to provide a quote for it, is Paul Cartledge is bringing out a new book on the history of Thebes, and it's a cracker, absolute cracker, and we desperately need a good book on Thebes to put Thebes back on the map, as it so often loses out in conjunction to Athens and Sparta and other such cities. So keep an eye out for that as it comes out. And Linda, thank you so much indeed for your question. Persephone, who was Persephone married to? Was it Zeus? No, to Hades, Isabel. There we go. We've got a brilliant Alexis. Thank you for answering the question. Have we got time for a quick one? Is there a quick one that we can get through? Have we got time? You asked, Lorraine Eggleston asked about Pericles' funeral speech, and you being confused particularly about the line about widows. You've read that Pericles was sexist or not at all sexist. You're confused. How does it go? Okay, so the line about widows in Pericles' funeral speech, which is the one he's giving during the course of the Peloponnesian War over the fallen heroes in the very first years of the war. And at the very end of that speech, he's turned to give his advice to the parents of fallen soldiers. He then turns to give his advice to brothers of those fallen people, how they should react and how they should think about it. And then finally, at the end of the speech, he turns to the widows. And it is a rather odd phrase, right? He sort of says this. He says, "Great will be your glory in not falling short of your natural character, and greatest will be hers who is least talked of among the men, whether for good or for bad." Right? Does feel, doesn't it, Lorraine, like quite a sort of sexist invention in some ways. Kind of basically you're the best woman if you're just not talked about at all, and you maintain whatever is considered in ancient Greece to be your natural character. And of course the position of women outside of religion was very much to keep them within the sphere of the home, not allowing them any kind of political say or political equality. So within the context of ancient Greece, Pericles is not really being sexist. He's probably just being very, very normal, and no one would have remarked at that kind of thought or expression at all. Of course, comparing it to the modern world, it sounds a very sexist and completely outdated and unfair way of thinking about things. Although we might just want to claim that Pericles was a teensy little bit of a hypocrite here, because we do know that Pericles had a very long-standing affair with Aspasia, who was a very well-known and very talked about woman in ancient Athens, admirably talked about as much as sort of bitterly talked about. But certainly he had as his partner, a good part of his life, a woman who was very talked about indeed. So perhaps Pericles, it was a case of do as I say, don't do as I do. Everyone, we're over the half hour. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for coming in. Absolutely brilliant to see you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next time, we will be back next Thursday, the 30th of April, 2 o'clock again. We'll do 2 o'clock next Thursday, the 30th of April. I hope so much that you can join me then. But just as a reminder, in the meantime, tomorrow around about 12 o'clock, keep an eye on the Twistosphere for the release of the Actors of the Dionysus Daily Dose of Ancient Greek Culture and Play Reading, which is going to be done by me. Have a look out for Sicily if you haven't seen it already on iPlayer and on TVs next week. And, of course, most importantly, let's help Jeremy Davies get his choice of Greek plays to go onto the stage in 2021 by voting in the Facebook World Cup of Ancient Greek Plays that will be coming soon to the Facebook page. So, everyone, stay safe, stay well, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I'll see you all again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.